Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you've already put a full day's work in, so I intend to get through this presentation in a timely fashion and ensure we leave some time for questions and answers, and at the end of it, we'll summarize and ensure you have our contact details to make sure we get these things done for you and your family. So let's get into the meat of our presentation today. And so what's on our agenda today? What will you know? Well, we're going to go through 4 points about knowing your numbers. So how to establish those numbers. We're going to talk to you about how do you protect your life's work. Those 2 points, we're going to clarify that further by showing you some case studies. Like I said, we're going to leave some time for questions and answers. Then we're going to summarize and give you 8 winning strategies, quick winning strategies. And finally, how do we get this done for you and your family? So that's our agenda for today. What will you have? You're going to have an easy way to ensure all of what we discussed today happens for you and your family, and give you an opportunity to speak to me one-to-one. What might you feel? We're hoping you're going to feel a little bit more peace of mind that you have got all of your affairs in order and you're on the right journey for whatever it is that you want sorting out. So let's get into knowing our numbers. So when it comes to retirement planning, what are the key numbers we need to know? Well, let's establish the value of your assets, your pension funds, your investments, the value of your business, cash savings, etc., etc. And then from establishing that, let's work out where is your income profile today and in the future. Let's now project that forward to retirement and beyond, those years in retirement, and see what we've got. How does all that work for us in the most efficient manner? So we ensure that you know you're going to have a comfortable retirement. And if maybe your figures don't stack up for you, let's know that now ahead of that retirement date and do something about that. When it comes to selling your business, well, what's vital when it comes to selling your business? Well, firstly, we've got to establish the value of your business, and how is that value made up? Goodwill, stock, debtors, creditors, cash in your business, other assets in your business, and how do we structure all that correctly to ensure when you sell the business, the maximum amount of the sale of the business, that value comes to you, and we minimize legitimately the amount that's payable to the Inland Revenue. And how do you protect your life's work? Well, one of the ways of protecting your life's work is to have the correct structure for your wills, trusts, and estate planning. What that will do is it will ensure you leave the maximum value to your loved ones and minimize, and once again, legitimately, the payment to the Inland Revenue. In addition to that, we want to maximize the value of your estate to your loved ones upon death in a prompt fashion and an efficient fashion as much as possible. And then finally, leaving a legacy. I'm quite passionate about this subject because 30 years ago, my father passed away quite unexpectedly. He left my mother in a very comfortable situation. However, he left her in a mess. Why? Because he didn't have all of these affairs in order. So once again, he left her comfortable, but he left her in a mess. And that was a legacy my dad left. And let's not do that to our families if we have the right advisors around us. Let's get that resolved. But before we get into this, there is a problem. And what's the problem? Well, the problem is the taxes in the UK. So before we get into the taxes in the UK, let's just work out, why is that a problem? Well, I'll tell you why it's a problem. Because the latest figures that I could find date back to March 21. I've searched high and low for the 2022 figures. They don't appear to be published. And in March 21, what was published was, in the tax year 2019-20, the income that the government collected, the Inland Revenue collected, or the government collected actually, was £636 billion. But the expenditure in that year, and they call it managed expenditure, was £881 billion. The following year, they collected £584 billion, and the expenditure that year was £1,053 billion. Now, 20 months ago, the deficit for the pandemic was 714 billion, and we know that's increased. So 20 months ago, the deficit in the UK was £2,224 billion. That's 106% of GDP. What's changed since then? Well, these figures continue to grow. We now have a war in the Ukraine, which we are heavily funding, the protection of people and our liberty. So we know these figures have changed. And the point of showing you this slide is this: 95% of the electorate are the people that you and I employ. It's so-called average people. They're 95% of the electorate. 5% of the electorate are considered to be the wealthy people. Now, I don't know about you, I don't particularly feel hugely wealthy, but what I do know is I definitely make up that 5%. And I'm hazarding a guess, everybody on this webinar today also makes up that 5%. So they're not getting that money, this deficit, they're not going to fill this deficit from the people we employ. They're going to fill that deficit from you and I. So the question is, when are we going to deal with this? What we're about to talk about today, when are you and I going to deal with these matters? Because if you don't deal with it now, then ultimately this is what's going to happen to our money. And the revenue are not going to be shy to put their hands into our pockets as deeply as they can if we don't complete all of our planning correctly and properly, or as best as we can. So what's the ideal outcome? If we take the right steps at the right time, our ultimate aim is that we sleep like a baby, in the knowledge that we've done the best we can and we've protected our family as we should have done. So let's now move on to the key issues of today. So retirement planning. What are the 4 key things here, or the 3 key things here that you would like me to establish? This is my understanding from most of my clients. They say to me, these are the things we want to establish. We'd like you to help us assist how much inflation-proofed income we need in retirement, and where are we going to get that money from? So where from our existing assets and savings are we going to get that money from? And when we're drawing that money, how can we draw that money in the most efficient manner? And maybe there's 2 of us today, and tomorrow there'll only be 1 left. So let's ensure that we've left our spouses with sufficient money when we're no longer here. How do we do that? Well, to do that successfully, we need to look at your individual circumstances, and we need to summarize them in detailed analysis. What's your income? What's your expenditure? What's the value of your assets, the properties, the savings, pensions, investments, pension funds, etc., etc. Project that forward and then say, well, at retirement, now we've established what we think you need. This is how the income's going to come out from these different sources, minus taxes, and obviously add inflation to it, and see how long that money is going to last. So in talking about that, how do we actually do that for you? Well, we use a technology called cash flow modeling, and I have an example for you today. It's a very simple example for the purposes of today's presentation. To ensure we do things in a timely fashion, I've created a simple example for you today. So we have Atul and Jalpa Patel. Atul is 56, Jalpa is 55. They have 2 children, both at university, studying pharmacy. So they're not planning to sell their business, they're planning to gift it to their children. But nevertheless, they need to ensure they have set up their retirement planning correctly. So they have some investments, they have some being ISAs, they have some cash, they have their own home, they have a little mortgage, and they have a business. They also have an income profile where they take small salaries, the balance of the money comes out in dividends. So we've worked out their income and their income tax liability and what net income they have. From that, we've then established with them what their expenditure is, and they have a modest lifestyle. They maximum fund their equity ISAs, but other than that, they have a fairly modest lifestyle. What do they want? Well, in retirement, they'd actually like £80,000 a year for the first nearly 20 years, net of income tax. Why 80,000 a year? Because that's what suits their moderate lifestyle. However, they'd like a little bit extra to travel. So in those early years, they wanted to be able to travel a little bit. If they can help the children and or grandchildren, they'd like to do that. But then in later years, they think we'll be done with our traveling and probably done with helping kids and grandkids. So we'll have a little less money and that will be fine for us. Above all, we've made sure that this money will not run out, or they wanted to ensure that their money would not run out, their income would not run out before they do. And they wanted to ensure long-term, the income was inflation-proofed at about 3.5%. Now, currently we know that 3.5% is nowhere near what's happening in the real cost of living. However, 3.5% long-term is what they felt was the right figure. Now, by using this technology, you can see the blue line is the line where they're accumulating their assets, and it starts to come down where they start to spend, but actually the money runs out before they do. So it runs out at Otto's 82nd birthday. Now that's a most, forgive me, it's a most inconvenient time for it to run out, because I don't think people want to return back to work at that time. Or maybe into your 70s and you start to realize you're not going to have enough money. You start to cut your lifestyle down. Well, people have worked 30, 40 years. They don't want to have these compromises in retirement. So what we recommended with them, using our software and our detailed analysis and experience, is we recommended they made a little adjustment to the company pension. So they pay from their company into pension scheme for Atul, and the same again for Jalpa. And in doing so, we gave them some very specific figures. You can see now what's happened to the blue line. They're not going to run out of money. So that's what this kind of technology does, and the knowledge and the experience we have. When we put all that together, this is what we can help people with. So let's move on to our next point. When it comes to selling your business, what do we need to do here? Well, again, what do people normally want? Well, they want to know, how much can we get for our business? They want to know, if we got that value for our business, what is the tax I will have to pay? Finally, meaning, how much of the proceeds can I keep? So the most important thing here when it comes to selling your business, you've really got to structure your business correctly prior to selling. And in order to do that, what we need to establish is, what kind of business do you have? Is it a trading business or is it an investment business? Now, some of you might be thinking, what is Asvin talking about, a trading business or an investment business? We run a pharmacy. Surely that's a trading business. Well, yes, it is, logically speaking, but from a tax perspective, a trading business is exactly what you run, most of you run. It's a business that buys and sells goods for the service of the public. Makes sense. But from an accounting and tax perspective, the question is, what's on your balance sheet and what's the trading activity? So if 100% of your trading activity is dispensing goods and general pharmacy duty to the public, you're okay. If, however, 20% of your trading activity is not what I've just discussed, but it has rental income or investment income, then you have a problem. The second area where we need to establish, are you a trading or investment business, is on your balance sheet. Well, what's normally on your balance sheet? Goodwill, debtors, creditors, stock, maybe a loan. But do you have any investments in your business which are not related to pharmacy? Do you have any property in your company? And I don't mean your pharmacy property. I'm talking about investment property. Again, if 20% of your balance sheet or more is represented by non-pharmacy assets, then we have an issue. And what's the issue? Well, the issue is this. When you come to sell your business, you want to legitimately pay the least amount of tax. And in order to do that, once you've sold your business, after the event, you will claim something that used to be called, many of you will know, entrepreneur's relief, which today is known as business asset disposal relief. It's the same thing. And if you can claim that up to a maximum value of £2 million, then you'll only pay 10% tax. If, however, you cannot claim that because you have these other assets in your business or activities, you will double the tax bill to 20%, or if it's property related, 28%. So you can see getting your business structured correctly is vitally important prior to the sale, and we can assist you with that. So moving on to our third subject, wills, trusts and estate planning. How do you protect your life's work? Well, you do that by having the correct framework of wills, trusts and estate planning. And what are your needs when it comes to inheritance tax planning? Well, one of the questions you'll ask is, where are my assets going to go? Who are they going to go to when I die? And how much tax will my family pay? Is it fair? You may ask that question. And what can I do to minimize the tax payable? So the first thing you can do is to make a will. It sounds simple enough, but once again, for most of my pharmacist clients, they have, accrued assets of some value, and really to do things properly and correctly, it sounds simple enough, but it may be that you need to have a little bit more. The will and the trust work that you have might need to be just a little bit more than what the average person would have. Once again, it's often because of the value of your estate and maybe the types of assets that you own. I've commonly seen that amongst most of my pharmacy clients. Canada Life did a study actually, and they said 59% of people don't even actually have a will. And that is a real problem. We won't get into that, why it's a real problem, but I think you'll probably all know. A good will should be able to clearly define how your assets are distributed. This helps avoid family disputes. It speeds up the disposal of those assets or the distribution of those assets, and it reduces the stress to the family at the time when they feel emotionally vulnerable. So I think it's really important to make sure you've got the correct will and the structure beneath it, which are the trusts and the estate planning. So how do we do this? Well, clearly we need to use estate planning tools. A will, just making a will isn't enough. You've got to do a little bit further. And what the estate planning tools do will help you ensure that your assets are distributed to the right people at the right time. They will also reduce the amount of potential inheritance tax, and they will protect against what we commonly call social impact. What are some of the social impact issues? Things like divorce, maybe of our kids, maybe of, in the event I passed away, if my wife got remarried. Maybe she doesn't make as good a choice the second time round as she did the first time round. Yeah. What about if I pass away and she goes into a nursing home? How many of our assets are going to be swallowed up in providing for that care? So I'm not suggesting that I wouldn't want her to have the right care. I absolutely want her to have the right care. But we need to ring fence some of these things. What about bankruptcy, creditor, etc., etc.? All these kind of things. This is what social impact is talking about. So a complete protective framework is ensuring that we use a range of trusts for the appropriate assets, and ensuring that that stuff on death, the right assets go to the loved ones in the right quantity and the least amount legitimately to the taxman. So, leaving a legacy. Let's have a look at how we can construct your finances to ensure that our spouses live with dignity once we are gone. Today, while we're together, of course, everything's great. But tomorrow, when one of us is no longer here, it could be the one that's left is a little vulnerable. So let's ensure that the legacy you and I leave is not like my dad, who was a wonderful man, he was an amazing guy. Like I said, he left my mom in a really comfortable position, but he left her in a mess. So let's not do that. And so what are your needs when it comes to this area? The questions I often find is, how much tax will my family have to pay? And who's going to make all these financial arrangements for my family when I'm gone? And have I got a correctly structured will or trust, if they have one in place already, or we need to have correctly structured wills and trusts in order that my family can have all these assets comfortably, efficiently, maximum value, etc., etc. So, utilizing trust planning. When you utilize trust planning, what does that mean? Well, it means that it deals with your home, your savings, your investment, your business, all the assets you have. But it ensures that all these assets are protected against care home fees, marriage after death, debtors, creditors, divorce, future generational inheritance tax planning, utilizing all the allowances such as the residential nil rate ban. I'll come back to that future generational inheritance tax planning because I think that's quite important. My wife and I, Deepa and I, we have two sons, they're 20 and 18, so they're young men now. And when we are both gone, and they've utilized all the structure we've set up for them, there may still be a little tax to pay. They'll pay that. But what we don't want is then that all of these assets we leave to them, for them to be taxed again when they leave them to their children. So that's what we mean about further and generational tax planning. And so what are the kind of solutions that we can use when it comes to that kind of planning? Well, there's one solution there. Your home and your savings. So as you can see, there's a house there, and there's a dotted line through that house. So what we've done is we've split the ownership of that house as what we call tenants in common. And what that allows us to do is, should I pass away, the value of my share of the house and my savings can go into trusts, which protects that asset. If, however, everything's owned jointly, sorry, I've pressed the clicker. If, however, everything's owned jointly, it has to go to one partner or the other. It cannot go into the trust. So by the asset falling into trust, once again, it will protect against care home fees, marriage after death, creditors, debtors, bankruptcy, divorce, future and further generational IHT bills, inheritance tax bills, and again, making sure we use all the allowances, including the residential nil rate band. So here's the thing. You've got to have an appropriate will and trust. So I'm just going to show you a little case study here that might reflect, as an example, my circumstances. So I'm hoping you can all see the screen correctly here. And I've got some assets up here. We have a home worth £650,000. We have a business worth £2 million. We have some savings worth £150,000. We've got some buy-to-let properties, various properties, 700,000, and a couple of pensions, or as many pensions as you wish, but total value of pensions is about £1 million. So how does my will and trust structure look? Forgive me, I'm turning my back to you because I'm just drawing this will box up here. So the first thing is, my wife and I have agreed that we want the same objectives. If I was to pass away, we want the same kind of thing happening. If she was to pass away, we want the same kind of thing. So we have a mirror will. And in that mirror will, when the first person passes, you can't see me there, here you go, you see me now. When the first person passes, we have a trust. It's a family trust. And in that family trust, I'm sorry, I don't think, there we go. Maybe you can see me now. In that family trust, upon, let's say, me passing, my share of the house will come into this family trust. Now, once again, it can only come into the family trust if it's owned as tenants in common, not jointly owned. That's a fairly easy thing to arrange. Whether you have a mortgage or not, it's fairly easy to arrange. So that's the first thing that would happen. And that passes into there completely tax-free. Now, the next thing, We have a business trust. Now, in the event I pass away, there is a likelihood that there'll be a new ownership of this business because my wife is not a financial planner. So I own half of this business. It's a 2 million value. My share certificate immediately upon death. So I use my words carefully. My share certificate immediately upon death falls into the trust. It's only a piece of paper, but we think it's worth £1 million. So if Deepa was to sell the business, she would get £1 million in her Lloyd's bank account. But my money would fall into a business trust, completely inheritance tax-free again, by the way. What does that do? That means that she has access to her money, clearly in her bank account. She can also have access to that, but it is inheritance tax-free should she leave it later for our sons. We have some savings here. Again, they need to be individual names, not joint. So we have a facility to help our clients manage their cash and get the best rates of interest they can, but they can have them in separate names. So again, there's something called what they call an interest in possession trust. And that's where the value of my cash would fall, as well as the value of my buy-to-let properties. So savings, and investments. And then over here, we've got pension. Now, it's important for you to recognize that if you have a pension scheme, really you want it to be a modern style pension scheme, which allows all the tax planning opportunities or the legislative opportunities. If a lot of old pension schemes don't have the current legislation that's available, the current opportunities, product opportunities that are available, for death planning, you cannot attach that, you can't apply that to an old style pension scheme. Why? Because the product provider doesn't have the ability to build that option into the old style pension. So when you have new style pensions, modern style pensions, and by the way, you do need to check because some modern style pensions don't have discretionary trust wrapper. The whole pension is in discretionary trust wrapper, number one. Number two, does that pension have the ability to utilize something called nominee drawdown, which allows the money to pass inheritance tax-free to your family? So it may be worth analyzing your pensions to see where they are. And do they allow for the right planning opportunities? So what I'd like to do is we'll now move to questions and answers. So I'll just wait for anybody to flash up on the questions and answers on the questions and answers box. But in the meantime, Ashley, if you can take the screen off so they can just see me, that would be great.
Like I said, if anyone would like to have any questions, if you'd like to raise your hand, put them into the Q&A. We have a question from Mohammed. Mohammed, would you like to unmute and ask a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. My question is, if you have a pharmacy business and other healthcare businesses, would they all fall into investment? The rest of the non-pharmacy businesses, or is it still sort of a trading business?
Oh, we've lost Ashvin's. Ashvin, we can't hear you now.
Hello, can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Perfect. Mohammed, let me understand this correctly. If we have a pharmacy business, and within that pharmacy business, we've got other, as in the limited company, we've got other businesses, but they're healthcare businesses. Am I correct? Mohammed, am I correct? So they could be nursing homes, they could be, I don't know, an internet business for pharmacists, or it could be. Is that what we're saying here?
Sorry, I've completely missed that. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. I was saying, so we've got a limited company, and inside your limited company, you have your pharmacy business, but you've
Correct, yeah.
also invested in other businesses, such as, let's say, a nursing home and stuff of that nature.
Not quite. No, it's businesses within the same premises. Let's say an optician,
Oh, fantastic.
operating theatre, that type of thing.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, that sounds like a trading business to me.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
It sounds like a, because it's not an investment, is it? It's an actual working trading business. But of course, some of your colleagues may have similar questions, but everybody's circumstances are slightly different. So we'll tell you about how you can get in touch with us so we can answer your own particular questions. So it sounds like that's a trading business to me, Mohammed, but the way we would establish that is obviously by speaking with you one-to-one and getting more detail from you. And you'll give me, I'll ask you some very specific questions, and you'll obviously you will know the answers, or you'll get the answers. We'll be able to establish that for you. But it does sound like a trading business to me.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. It'd be interesting to see what we've got to say. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
We've also got, is it Mutza? If you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, Ashwin. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, I can.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I just wondered if you could please just recap on the part where you mentioned about the old style and the modern style pensions, please. I just think I lost a few of the things there where you said that they should be up to date, where they will allow the modern type of planning, please.
Yeah, wonderful. Great question, and thank you for asking that question. So, right, firstly, please forgive me because I don't think I was very clear in what I said. So I don't think it was your misunderstanding or not understanding. I think I could have explained that a bit better. So I'm going to give me a second to think about the right words to use here.
Okay. Yeah.
And so when a product is designed, a pension product is designed by, let's say, Aviva. We'll use Aviva. It doesn't matter which insurance company. They design it with the legislation, the tax legislation at that time.
Right.
So if something was designed in the year 2000, you bought a product, let's say you started to invest whatever amount of money with Aviva in the year 2000, then of course you've bought the product that was designed at that point, or maybe it was designed in 1995 and nothing has changed in the legislation. So in the year 2000, you buy that. Now, if then in the year 2015, the legislation changes and the revenue brings in something new, it could be that Aviva have not amended that product, or they could not amend that product. They could not amend it because it might have been written under old legislation and it's an old style pension scheme. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you've got something called a retirement annuity contract, that's a very old style pension. If you've got an executive pension plan, that's a very old style pension. These kind of pensions do not have the ability to add that legislation in, number one. Number two, it could be that Aviva have worked out, for them, it's not worth writing the legislation in there for whatever reason. I don't own an insurance company. I've never ran an insurance company, so I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. What I do know is this: either it has the latest technology or it doesn't. If it doesn't have that latest, when I say technology, I mean legislation, is it doesn't have the latest legislation, then you're disadvantaged potentially in terms of inheritance tax planning, in terms of death planning, in terms of the way you can draw your income out.
Mhm.
So that's something that's worth checking, and that's something we can help you establish. A great question. Thank you for asking the question.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it looks very quiet on the Q&A tonight. Yes, that's either that you've covered it extremely well, Asvin,
Okay.
or that everybody has got your email address and would like to just email you with all further questions. I know you
So
had a
I-
slide coming up, didn't you?
Yes, if you can bring the slides back up, please.
Okay, we've got you back on the slide.
Excellent. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've covered the majority of our presentation this evening, but I did say to you I was going to give you 8 quick winning strategies. We've dealt with your questions and answers. I think there's a lot more questions to be answered, but you'll find out how you can ask me those in a moment. But let's get on to our 8 winning strategies now. So, one of the things that we haven't yet talked about today, but it's very simple, life insurance policies. Now, I have quite a lot of life insurance, and I have to die for it to be of any value to my family. But I don't want that money to pay out to my wife and my children directly, because it means it pays into my estate. It means it has to pay inheritance tax. So I'd rather write the policy into trust. So the life insurance money goes directly into a trust, which is an inheritance tax free. And then from that, Deepa and my 2 sons can access the money from there. That's number 1. Number 2, if you have got existing pensions and investments, have you looked at the charges recently to ensure these are reasonable charges? Have you looked at the investments on the inside to see what level of risk am I taking and what's the strategy for growth here? You're all aware that we're already in a recession. You know, we hear that on the news on a regular basis. We're already in a recession, but we also hear the worst is yet to come. So I really encourage you to review your pensions and investments and make sure that the underlying investments align to the level of risk you're prepared to take in these uncertain times. Next thing, check that all the pensions that you do have, as we've discussed already, but they can be inheritance tax free, IHT, inheritance tax free, and that you're directing the death benefits to the right members of the family and or a flexible family pension trust. Number 4, have you got excess cash or assets in your business? If you've got excess cash in your business, consider boosting your pension funds. Why? Because when you put money into the pension, you get corporation tax relief. And when that money goes into a pension scheme, it goes into a modern style pension, of course, it goes into an inheritance tax-free asset. That makes a lot of sense to me. Or consider, if you've got excess money, consider using alternative profit extraction strategies in order to qualify for business property relief. Business property relief is an inheritance tax relief, but it can also help you by getting rid of the excess cash. It can also help you gain the entrepreneur's relief, which is called business asset disposal relief. This is for sale your business. Review your current wills and ensure they're up to date in terms of your wishes. Often I find those who have made wills may have made them some years ago. And so maybe the executors are not the right people. Maybe the trustees are not the right people. Maybe the wishes at that time were suitable for that time, but actually now things have changed. They need to change. And ensure that your will directs all of your assets into the appropriate framework of trusts, such as trusts that will capture the business property relief. That's the business assets here. And it becomes inheritance tax-free upon sale. Asset preservation, which is a family trust here, utilizing the residential nil rate ban. And for today, let's use lifetime cash flow planning to ensure that we have got the right money in the right places, which means that when we come to retirement, we've got sufficient income to last us through all our life, not run out at the most inconvenient time. And review that regularly. Finally, again, most of my clients that come to me excuse me, most of the clients that choose to work with us, they're intelligent people. They already have some form of advisor, but you need to understand what kind of advisor have you got. And I've established there's 3 types of advisors, and all 3 are very useful to have. One is simply a life assurance agent. Often, life assurance agent is somebody who deals with your mortgages and things of that nature and will ensure you've got the life cover that is appropriate for that mortgage. Sometimes people have a financial advisor. So a financial advisor can also deal with the life insurance, but they'll help you ensure that you get all your pensions funded and your ISAs funded and things of that nature. But I think for all the people that I meet who are fairly mature, have fairly mature assets, they would benefit from having a relationship with a financial planner. Why? Because a financial planner will deal with your life insurances, they'll help you get your money into the right asset areas, but they'll do the cash flow modeling. They will look at all of your assets and then look at all the taxes and all of these things, all these little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. They have a lot more knowledge, you tend to find, and they're far interested to ensure that everything is set up in the right way and all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are set up correctly. What you tend to find, those people will come back and revisit your jigsaw puzzle with you regularly to ensure the picture that we set up there in that jigsaw puzzle, what pieces have changed? So let's make sure we bring that back into shape. What pieces do you want to change? What pieces do you want to pull out and put something new in? What piece is redundant today, is no longer valid today? Let's put the right piece in or remove it altogether. So a financial planner goes to a slightly different level, I would say. And I think most of you would benefit from having a financial planning relationship, which in my business, we call that a lifetime relationship. How do we do that for clients? How do we organize all these things for clients? Well, we call it our wealth management system. And it starts with the discovery process. Part of the discovery process is this today. Me sharing with you a few ideas, giving you just a taster of the kind of things we can do for you. And if after today's meeting, you thought we'd like to engage with these people, we'd like to talk a little further with them, what we'll invite you to do is to complete a lifetime focusing. And that's a simple 4-page document here. And what it tells us, we ask you to complete it, is your name, address, contact details, the people in your family. We ask you to tell us a little bit about your income profile, your assets in terms of your properties, your business assets, your financial assets, cash, ISAs, all these kind of things, pension funds, your insurance policies, your liabilities, your estimated expenditure. Tell us a little bit, it's got another section about pensions, a little bit more about pensions, but the area I'm most interested in, so it's a fairly simple 4-page document. First 3 pages are what we call hard facts. The page I'm really interested in is the back page. And on this back page, we're going to ask you some more details about wills and trusts. What have you got in place? And then we're going to ask you about, during that first meeting with me, what is it that you want to discuss that's important for you? The agenda should be your agenda. That's what I want to know. And then finally, we're going to ask you, what does my firm need to do? Myself and my team, what do we need to do for you to be happy with our work? So that's what we're going to ask you. Before the first meeting, if you complete that and let me have that back, then during that first meeting, the discovery meeting, we will then be able to establish what are your worries and concerns, what are your goals and objectives, and having established that, by completing this document and discussing that during our discovery meeting, we'll be able to give you a framework of the areas we need to work on. We will then write a plan for you. And that plan will cover those areas that you want us to work on. Often they're things around estate planning, the management of your existing wealth. You know, can you analyze that and tell us where that's at? The protection of your wealth. It's those kind of things. We will come back to you with a written report. And once you've had that written report, we'll have a planning meeting to discuss it all and decide what direction do we go in. And then finally, we'll implement it all for you. Now, once all that's done, we will then circle back to you on a regular basis to ensure what we set up for you stays relevant. Perhaps with a change in markets, perhaps in the change of regulation, perhaps in the change of taxes. Perhaps your own objectives have changed. So we're constantly keeping that up to date. And that's what I mean by a lifetime relationship. So we've got a 5-step guide. Establish your current situation. Number 2, help you understand what are your needs, what are your fears. Having established that, let's then help remove your concerns, eliminate your fears, and protect your life's work. If we can do that, you should gain confidence. And then finally, having gained confidence, you have freedom to spend your money and live your life as you wish, because you know you're in a comfortable place. You know that the people you leave behind are going to be well looked after, they're protected. Everything will be done in an orderly fashion, in an efficient fashion, in a prompt fashion, alleviating any stress at a very difficult time. So what have we given you today? We've given you a taster of the kind of work we can do. We want you to understand that this is really important, because none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so therefore, when is the right time to deal with this? You decide. We think sooner is better than later. So we've given you an easy way to deal with all this. How's that? The easy way with dealing with all this is we sent you an email actually at circa 4 o'clock, was it, Joe, today? It was about 4-ish, wasn't it? Everybody that the MPA told us was going to be or had booked to be on this webinar, my firm, PharmaWealth, part of the Ashley Court Group, have sent you an email. And in that email, we've got various documents. We've got a little PharmaWealth brochure. We have a little document that tells you about Ashley Court and the PharmaWealth Group, a little bio on me. We've got here our client guarantee, our commitment to you, and we've got this form, a response sheet. Now, the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're only going to contact you if you ask us to contact you. So please complete the sheet. It's very simple. Your name, your occupation. So most of you are going to be pharmacists. Your business name, your address. You can give us the home address or the business address or both. The best contact number, whether that be home, mobile, or work. Email address. Again, if you want to give us your business address and home, there's 2 boxes here. And various other contact details here. And then on the back, please, we request you to rate today's webinar. Why? Because we're constantly looking for feedback to ensure that I'm delivering the best message to you in the best fashion. So if you can rate that for us, we'll be very grateful. And then tell us, what area are you interested in? Now, we've got here 6 areas that most people are interested in: wills and trust estate planning, pensions, investments, tax mitigation planning, profit extraction, or another box for you to put that down there. And yes, you would like a meeting, and what's the best time to contact you and the best telephone number. So my team will reach out to you and contact you in order to make this first part of the journey possible. What I do request is please give us daytime contact details, because my team don't work in the evening or the weekends. We don't work evenings or weekends. So please give us daytime contact details so we can get in touch with you, and return that via fax or email directly back to my office. All those details are actually on the form. The 6th document is a privacy statement. So that's what we've given you today. There are 3 types of people in today's audience, just before we wrap up. Those who have everything done, and I congratulate you. Those who are wondering, is what I've done correct? Have I utilized all the tax breaks? And those that are often just simply too busy. If you fall into one of the last 2 categories, then let's get something done for you, so we ensure that when it comes to this topic, we get your stuff done. Now, there's lots of variables. So therefore, we do need you to complete the sheet and get back to us so that we can address your affairs one-to-one with you. Please send them back to the email address that's on that document, or you can fax it, and Leanne French will be in touch with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I said to you we'd keep it within the time frame. We have managed to do that, and I do look forward to hearing from you, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can and book you in the diary to move matters forward.